Hey guys, my name is Michael and I'm back for another reaction video. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to a channel that I haven't seen before. I got a request for this channel from someone on my Patreon. Uh, they had said that this was kind of similar to Mr. Ballin and kind of those types of videos. And so I thought I would check out a video of his to see if I enjoyed it or not. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's just get right into it. This was the only one that or not the only one. This is one of the ones that I saw that looked pretty interesting. So yeah, let's just get right into it.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, I'm going to tell you a story, right? It's a story which has got a lot in it, and it's got quite a few similarities to another story I told you a while back. If you remember that lad Stephen Port.
As it happened, Anthony, I know nothing about the free how they come to be.
Stephen, this is serious.
Yes,
Okay.
It was pretty memorable. Imagine you're on the savannah, right, and you can see lions stalking and hunting little old gazelles. Now change savannah to app, and lion to a man named Mark Latunski. He loved the app Grinder. Grind's gonna grind, and he loved it because it allowed him to lure people to a certain basement in Michigan. People went there thinking they were gonna have a whale of a time. Nope. Not so. Instead, it was ropes, it was chains, and not in a good sort of way, and also a frying pan frying things which should not be fried. So, let's give it a go. Mark certainly did.
It was a new moon, and as a result of that, Latunski said that he normally eats Rocky Mountain oysters.
Okay.
And instead of
Bro, I don't know what that was, but that did not sound good, whatever it was.
So Swartz Creek, Michigan is where we are firing the starting pistol, for want of a better word. We haven't been to Michigan in a while, actually, have we? I missed its cold embrace of disturbing shit. Swartz Creek lies just outside the city of Flint, Michigan, a little over an hour northwest of Detroit. About 5,500 people live there, and, yeah. It's a place that exists in the world. Moving on. And it's the place where a man named Kevin Bacon lived.
Oh, yeah. See, we plan ahead. That way we don't do anything right now. Earl, explain it to me.
No, that Kevin Bacon. Tremors.
Oh, okay.
Rules.
I was literally just about to say, you mean the actor?
Our Kevin Bacon was 25 years old, born in 1994 and a native of the area, attending Swartz Creek High School and then the University of Michigan Flint to study applied psychology. However, what Kevin Richard Bacon really loved was the old mop shop. He was mad into being a hairdresser. He had graduated from Sharp's Hair Academy in Grand Blanc, a nearby city. And during those days, in 2019, he was working at Uniquely You Salon in Swartz Creek. He was close with his parents, Carl and Pamela, with his sister Jennifer, and he had a hell of a lot of friends. He had a hell of a lot of cats and a dog. He was said to be a really funny, charming, quirky guy. His friends would always say he was, very supportive of them and their endeavors. He was always there for them. He was your biggest cheerleader, but he was also a shoulder to cry on. He just made everybody feel welcome. Though he did have his own issues with self-harm and body image. Kevin, he wasn't the biggest fan of Swartz Creek. He wanted to get out and go to the big smoke. He felt a bit of FOMO, living in a small town when the action was really going on in the city. And so he was studying, he was working, and he was dreaming of eventually moving to Chicago. That was the plan anyway. So all those good things make, what happened in December 2019 all the worse.
This is the saddest thing about most stories that are horrible. I assume this is going to be horrible. Is whoever the victim is usually just always the sweetest person. And for some odd reason, they get thrown into these horrible situations, which it's always so bad. And I always feel for whoever the people are and their families, especially their families, because the families still have to deal with that even today, which is just a horrible situation.
No shit. Christmas Eve is when this case begins.
That's sad.
That cold as
Nice
shit
B-roll.
winter evening, below freezing, Kevin Bacon was off to meet a man. He'd been on Grindr, the gay dating app, and what he wanted for Christmas was, well, you know. He had been working that day at the hair salon, which was across from his home, and after work he had done his mother and his sister's hair for the holiday. But after that, according to a Rolling Stone article, they were supposed to have a big family dinner. But someone Kevin didn't want to see, didn't want to interact with, no idea who, was coming over, and so he decided to skip it. He lived with his good friend Michelle, and so after work he went back.
I assume the person they didn't want to see was... It was probably a family member who didn't approve of him being, you know, essentially gay. And so it probably gives him a hard time all the time and says horrible things to him. So that's probably why he didn't want to be around them. That's the only thing I can assume.
And so he decided to skip it. He lived with his good friend Michelle, and so after work he went back to his home. He busted out the app, see if there was any lads around who was hanging dong. And he found someone, one Olikos Kai Lucas. Butchered that.
Bro, that name.
As I said, Kevin was going places, but he had his own mental health issues too, depression troubles. And so getting out there and meeting new people, that was an escape for him. And so he got into his car in the early evening of the 24th of December. He told his roommate he'd be back later that night. So he popped into his car and he drove off. Drove off, never to be heard from, quite simply, again.
Wow.
About 6:20 p.m., so a little over an hour after he left, Kevin switched his phone. He switched his phone off, which was quite unusual for him, you know, going to meet strangers like this. You know, you might want to keep your phone handy. You never know what kind of weirdos are out there. But it was really the next day, when he was a no-show for Christmas family breakfast, that the true fear began. It was on the 26th of December that the searches for Kevin began, and word, you know, began to spread out. He had left to meet some stranger on Christmas Eve and never come back, never contacted his family, never contacted his friends. Very weird for Kevin. It was the next day, being the 27th of December, that Kevin's car was discovered on Miller Road. So still in the Swartz Creek.
Off topic, he has some really cool tattoos. Some really cool tattoos. And with 6'2", dang!
That Kevin's car
I was reading
discovered
the
on
thing.
Miller Road. So still in the Swartz Creek area. They found the car by pinging his phone. So his phone was there, ding ding ding, but when they found the car, it did nothing to allay any fears they had because, you know, inside the car, they found his clothing. Now, Kevin didn't bring a spare change of clothing with him, so
That means
if his
the
clothing
dude
was there,
undressed
he was
him.
either naked or somebody had dressed him. Inside was his phone, his wallet, his ID, his cash, his everything. So his phone was there, and it was still logged into all the apps it had been, you know, as your phone does. And so from there, the police could trace, you know, the final messages sent, which would be to one Olikos Kai Lucas. If they'd known his real name, though, they would have found a number of police reports on him. Him being Mark Latunski. Kevin Bacon was not the first man Mark Latunski had lured to his home on West Terrell Road, Bennington Township, about a 20-minute drive west of Swartz Creek. On the 10th of October 2018, so we're talking about 2.5 months before, Kevin Bacon disappeared, a 48-year-old man named James Carlson called 911.
Sorry, Wesley 911, where's your emergency?
This is going to sound insane. I'm here in Detroit. I'm from New York. And I met this guy at the bus station who offered me a ride. And I'm not even sure where I am. Well, I broke out of this fucking basement, and I need a ride.
Okay.
I'm in trouble. I can't even find my way back to his place if I wanted to. Sweetheart, I need help.
Okay, I'm going to get you help. Are you walking down the street right now?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I don't know whether he drugged me. I don't know. I woke up in the fucking basement. Okay? Chained in the basement with a leather thing around my ankle, and I cut it with the butcher knife that I have in my freaking hand. Excuse my French. And I met this guy. I'm by. He was cute. He hit on me. I know. We went out to the car. We talked. We went to the store. Had a soda. I woke up in the basement.
Okay.
He obviously drugged me.
Do you know what his name was?
No.
No?
And I don't want to pursue it. I want to go home.
He had traveled from
Oof.
New York to Michigan
That's
via
chilling.
bus, apparently specifically for some BDSM action with the boys. He must have been really desperate, though, for it, if he traveled all the way from New York City to the middle of bumfuck Michigan via bus. A quick Google, because I am a researcher, tells me that that journey takes about 20 hours on the bus.
Yeah, I was about to say, I could tell you that.
Anyways, that's besides the point. So he ended up at a bus station in Swartz Creek. Now, Mark Latunski was married. His husband's name, Jamie Arnold.
Oh.
And so this James Carlson had met Jamie Arnold online. Or, likely, someone claiming to be him. Marky picked James up, and James fell asleep in the car. And then he woke up, tied up, in Mark's dank, dirty basement. He managed to cut the straps loose with a butcher knife. Why there would be a butcher knife in his little sex dungeon of all things is another story. And then he
Good thing he got to it.
out of the house calling 911. No charges were pressed in the end, and that was just kind of the end of it. But 6 weeks later, on the 25th of November 2019, it happened again. This time, a 29-year-old man had ran out of Mark's house calling 911.
Sherlock County 911.
I want to get away from some creepy guy. He had me tied up in his basement.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I'm trying to escape from some guy who had me chained up in his basement.
He had you chained in his basement? Where are you calling from?
I don't know. He's after me.
Hey, Z, I need you to go to somewhere safe. If you can run up to somebody's house. Where are you at right now? Are you able to get away?
Help me.
The police were able to track his location, from his phone, and he ran out of the house wearing nothing but a leather kilt. As you do. And he said Mark, he was chasing him. He ran to a nearby house asking the people living there to give him an address to tell the police. And so when the police arrived, again, well, nothing happened. Mark, he just said they were fooling around, in his basement up to little something. And the reason he was chasing this fella out of his house was because, well, he was wearing Mark's leather kilt, and that was worth like $300. So he wanted it back.
I hear a pounding at my door at 4 in the afternoon, and I jump up. My dogs are barking like you probably hear, and this kid has his face covered with a rag and a phone to his ear, and he's like, help me, he's after me, just scared to death out of his mind.
This scene played out on Park's front porch, just a few houses down from Latunski's home on Terrell Street in Bennington Township.
A gentleman pulls up in my driveway in a silver SUV, and he gets out, and he's wearing the same getup this guy's wearing, which is a leather skirt and a couple of belts crossing her body, no shoes on, no shirt. This kid grabs my arm and clutches behind me. Keep him away from me, just scared out of his mind.
Again, kind of nothing happened,
Good
but
Lord.
these two guys managed to escape.
It's a good
Kevin
thing.
Bacon did not. This would obviously be heavily criticized later, as in maybe if these guys weren't gay, the police would have looked at Mark Latunski.
What does that matter?
It seemed it could have been very different, but because it was, quote, gay guys doing stuff in a basement, end quote, the police didn't really give a shit. They're, let's just let them at it. This is like that Dahmer situation again of the, somebody running from a house and the police not believing them. It's a sad story. But who is Mark Latunski, aka Olikas Kai Lucas, as he went by on social media?
Bro. It's actually making me so angry
Mark
at
Latunski
cops.
was born in 1969, a native Michigonian? He had a long history of mental health issues, having been committed to mental health facilities 4 times, being diagnosed with chronic major depression with psychotic features, adjustment disorder with depression, and anxiety with paranoid schizophrenia, along with borderline personality traits. And he was highly intelligent. He attended Central Michigan University, Iowa State University, and was a chemist by profession. According to his LinkedIn, he had worked in various labs, but was, most recently, self-employed. In 2001, he would marry Emily Latunski. That marriage would last about 12 years. In 2013, they divorced, and together they had 4 kids. He would lose access, though, to his kids due to his mental health issues, because he refused to take any medication, which never sets you down a good path. Like, this would lead him to, for instance, kidnapping his own children, or claiming he had murdered himself. Okie dokie then. In 2016, he remarried to a fella named Jamie Arnold. They met on Grindr. At first, Jamie, he said things were great. Mark was a sweet guy. Later, though, he said he couldn't keep up with the BDSM lifestyle, and he couldn't get Mark to take his meds. He later fled the house. Though together, they were very much into the... I mean, I don't know much about the whole, like, gay leather daddy stuff, but it's very intimidating.
Jamie, do you think that it's possible that Mark has murdered before?
Given the evidence at hand, I think it could very well be possible.
So yeah, there you go.
Ah, this story's
the police
sad,
were later
man.
able to track missing Kevin to Mark's home via the messages they found on Kevin's phone, arriving there late on the 27th of December. They rocked up and Mark opened the door. He said, "How is, lads? Come on in." You know, he introduced himself to the police, Mark did, as Wilk Olikos Vilkus, you know, and then later said his name was Thomas Edgar Hill, and that he had changed his name to Mark Latunski for his own protection. He seemed cool, calm, and collected when the police arrived, and he happily was like, "Here, listen, knock yourselves out, have a go around the place, you know, work away." And then they went into the basement. In the basement, they found Kevin Bacon chained to the rafters by his ankles. He was completely naked, and he was long gone. So Mark, he had stabbed Kevin in the back. He had slit his throat, leaving him to bleed out. And then he had cut off his nuts and fried, and he fried and ate Kevin Bacon's testicles. He then had planned to use Kevin's blood and his bones to fertilize his plants and use his muscles to make jerky. He had even ordered a dehydrator for it. He wasn't going to let any of them go to waste, I'll give him that.
The investigation into the murder of 25-year-old Kevin Bacon continues after it was revealed that 50-year-old Mark Latunski, whom Bacon had met through a dating app, was charged with his death and mutilation. At this time, Michigan State Police say Latunski is the only suspect.
Mark was arrested and charged with the murder of Kevin Bacon and also mutilation of a dead body.
My name is Edgar Thomas Hill.
Mark would later say Kevin had told him he wanted to die. He asked Mark to stab him in the spine so that he wouldn't feel a thing. But that didn't quite work out, so Mark then slit his throat, and then he used a pulley system to hang him by his ankles to allow him to, quote, expire quicker.
Attorney Doug Corrin from the Public Defender's Office told Fox 2 that this is not a murder case, and he requested that the court add a count of assisted suicide. However, the court declined.
Toxicology reports showed an antidepressant in Bacon's bloodstream. Latunski's public defender Douglas Corwin says Latunski was assisting Bacon in committing suicide.
There is evidence, which the court said wasn't relevant, but there was also evidence on the record of duloxetine, what is an antidepressant.
Latunski told Detective Moore a similar story. However, text messages between the two show Kevin Bacon wanted Latunski to keep him safe after their hookup.
Kevin Bacon agrees to meet up with Mark Latunski, but expresses concerns that after the sexual interaction that he will be safe at all times.
He said Kevin Bacon was his hero, you know, for doing all of this, for willingly sacrificing himself.
He went upstairs, he saw that...
Bro, I'm actually so upset right now, man. I'm so mad at this. It's always so horrible because, you know, these people are just trying to weasel their way out of it. Because he wants to get up essentially out of this so he can do it again. That's essentially what he's trying to do. And so it's horrible. I'm so
In his words, it was
just
a
play the video.
And as a result of that, Latunski stated he normally eats Rocky Mountain oysters. And instead of using the oysters that he had in his freezer, he decided to use the testicles of Kevin Bacon.
Mark's lawyer would enter a plea of insanity, saying he was incompetent
He
to
is
stand
insane,
trial,
but...
and this would be set by the judge, but about 9 months later, a judge overruled that decision.
Oh yeah, I forgot. If you plead insanity, you essentially get out of charges. That's how it works. He is insane, but he knew what he was doing. Ah, that's so hard. I wouldn't know. I don't know.
And then, in September 2022, just as things were beginning to gear up for Mark Latunski's trial, he suddenly about-faced. Instead of going through with a jury trial and hoping to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, he instead pleaded, against the wishes of his attorney, guilty to the murder and mutilation of Kevin Bacon. He pled guilty to all charges against him.
Did you use a knife to stab Mr. Bacon?
Yes, I did.
Did you know that stabbing Mr. Bacon with a knife would most certainly create a very high risk of death or grave bodily harm to Mr. Bacon?
Yes, I did.
After Mr. Bacon was dead, did you remove part of his body, specifically his testicles?
Yes, I did.
Did you move those testicles to the kitchen?
Yes, I did.
Sounds like a dang robot.
The court finds that this is a crime of cold calculation. Kevin Bacon's death was Mark Latunski's design. The court finds the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. He selected the knife because the sword wasn't sharp enough.
Latunski pled guilty last month, waiving his right to a jury trial, a move his attorney disagrees with.
And no, I do not wish he had entered a guilty plea. I think that we would have been successful at trial, but we certainly have to accommodate his wishes and respect those.
I always have this... I never know what to think of defense lawyers, because I know it's their job, but they have to know sometimes when... If they look at... I don't know. If you look at a case and you see how horrible it is, and you know your client is most likely guilty, how can you defend them? How can you do it? I understand it's like a kind of a professional thing, but I don't know if I could ever do that.
And then in October, he was
crazy.
sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole.
Good. I mean, I'm a
That's
fan of
where
death
he should
penalty.
be. You know, for his own safety. Well, fuck his own safety at this point. And for everybody else's safety, to be frank. Though I am Mike. And so that kind of ends this reign of terror by Mark Latunski, a guy who was, well, you know, he was obviously completely not there at all, and did just the most horrific things. It's also a story of complete failure by the police. You know, when you have not one but two people, count them, two, you know, running from this guy's house saying they had been drugged and chained
Yeah, there was
up,
plenty of evidence.
and there was a butcher knife there. I mean, come on, what are you gonna do with that? You know, they had fled, saying this guy was gonna do something that was not gonna be a lot of fun, probably not what they signed up for Grindr for. The police didn't give a single solitary shit until poor, you know, Kevin Bacon
someone actually died.
You know, for such a lovely guy, had such a horrible end. It's a case of the writing once again, as we see time and time again, the writing being on the wall, but being ignored. You know, police just not really wanting to get involved, even though it's their fucking job. At least Mark is where he deserves to be, he should be. And I think I'll leave the final quote of this video with good old, you know, the other Kevin Bacon, because I completely agree when he said, "Fuck yeah!"
Man. Alright.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, that chapter. Okay, this channel's pretty good. The video was horrible. And, like, not as in, like, his video, but as in, like, the contents was horrible. But, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.